Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this video, I'm going to show you a playthrough of the custom scenario Romans versus Barbarians. Now this is a map I made in 2015, and basically it's about the last few years of the Western Roman Empire as it's ravaged by invasions and eventually falls. You know, the kind of cheery thing you post on Christmas. I'll explain how the game works once it starts, but if you decide that it's something you want to play yourself, someone has converted and uploaded it as a definitive edition mod. That's the most current one, though I might make a version 3 at some point that uses some of the new scenario editor features and upload that. For this version though, these are the settings that I think work the best, and notice the medium resources so the barbarians can build town centers, the 200 population cap, and the ending age being castle for all players. Civilizations are automatically picked for you when you select a color, and player 1 and 2 have to be on a team. It might seem hopeless at first, but the player 1 and 2 don't actually have to beat all of the other ones, they just have to survive. Will the Romans be able to withstand the barbarian invasions? Let's check it out. So for anybody who hasn't seen this before and doesn't know how it works, you can see that we have blue and red, and they're the Roman Empire. They're fighting together on the same team, and you can see here that we have the map of Europe, and this is maybe the 4th century, so the Romans have most of their territory still. Now, the goal for both of the Romans is to protect Blue's 5 capital cities. Of course, Rome is one of them, and we have that here. You can see it has a university and a siege workshop. The intention was for the Western Romans here in Blue to not be able to build any more of those buildings and just make the capital a little bit extra important that way, though they seem to still be enabled in the definitive edition version. Anyway, so we move up, so they have another capital, which here is Lugdunum, so this is the capital of Gaul in modern day France. And the idea is that the Romans seem to just keep one of these capitals alive for an hour and 15 minutes, and they win. That's it, they just have to keep one alive. And up at the top, and this is Britain here, we've got Londinium here as the capital, and very commonly you'll get raided, dropping off units here or attacking in through here. And again, they just need to keep one of these alive. And down in modern day Spain, or Hispania at the time, we have Corduba, which is another capital. And then at the very bottom, the 5th capital is Carthago. So as the barbarians, we need to destroy all of these, again, in an hour and 15 minutes. Now, they do have their allies red. We don't have to destroy it, but we can also destroy Constantinople. And that will let us extend the game by another 15 minutes. Basically, the idea is if you feel like you're running out of time and just need a bit more, that's something you can go after. And there's a couple ways to get to red. I'll try to show you on the map here. So we have the Danube River, which starts off as the border. You can see they have a lot of military buildings. Obviously, any buildings I've placed, I've named after the closest Roman city in that area. And so this is all walled up a little bit, but you know, it's not going to last very long if we're determined as the barbarians. And so we're just doing a little bit of quick raiding along here, just to poke them. And in fact, we even break in right here. Everyone does start off with a few units, though it's definitely not enough to launch a very successful attack. Romans also start off with a few spears so they can defend specific areas. And they do start, both sides start with one general, which is an elite cataphract, which I guess would be like the Roman emperor in the west and the east, though it doesn't matter if he dies, that's totally fine. Just something a little OP against these militia that you have. Because all the barbarians start nomadic, so we all had to place down a town center to begin the game. And I'll show you, so normally, yeah, so the fighting happens along here and we try to push in various areas here. And then you can also try to sneak in through here. There's sort of this little mountain pass here. And you can also just do river landings by boat and transport ship. So any of that is completely fair game. And actually encourage people to go a little bit outside the box in their thinking and try to surprise the other team. So let's go through the barbarians here. So I was playing as the, I guess they're like the Jutes. I guess kind of Angles and Saxons also getting thrown in there together. Put my town center somewhere kind of nice and safe, but also efficient. And usually I go for a bit of a fish boom up here. But my strategy is to make a navy, and basically if I can take out this town center, I've done my job. And anything else I can contribute is just extra, because really I should be able to build a bigger navy than the Romans. We have the same overall population space, and I can at least focus on that, and I should be able to take water control every time. And the Huns do start out with some cavalry archers. Of course, we're all starting in the feudal age. I did want to give them something a little stronger just to kind of scare the Romans a little bit with some of these early units. You have to be a bit careful with them because you actually can't build more until you reach castle age, obviously. Now moving on, in the gray we have sort of the Franks, or I guess you could say the Vandals, kind of both of those together. I would say this is actually the hardest one to play. You have a pretty cramped area here, squished in between the other Barbarians, and also very close to the Romans. And yeah, Gray's got a tough job. It's basically just survive some of these early raids. Now Teal also is pretty close, but there's a little bit more space in between them and the Romans. They don't get hit quite as hard. And Yellow can get the brunt sometimes from the Eastern Roman Empire. And some nice raiding here. And then you can see in the back we have green and we have purple, which both represent the Huns and are going to be the boomers here. They tend to take a little bit longer to get going and contribute a lot of cavalry archers, a lot of knights, and a lot of siege in the late game. You really count on them as the barbarians. But remember, we are limited to just the Castle Age, so no trebuchets and all that kind of stuff. And this is actually a decent little raid here by the Huns. I'm going to speed things up a little bit here. Just because for the first little bit, especially the Barbarians, are generally just booming. Because everybody's feudal age. We have quite a ways to go in terms of economy to catch up, but at some point we are going to have the advantage. Oh, so somebody was asking, right? Actually, I do kind of want to explain this. So just so people know, if you do want to play the game, somebody was asking about what this is. So you see all the different colored flags? Let's see, is anything happening here? No. Okay. So different color flags. So we have yellow flag, for example. Let's say yellow leaves the game. This disappears when he leaves, and his king disappears. And any of the other barbarians can put their king on that flag, and then they get control of all of yellow's buildings, all of his units, and they get his resources. So it's basically if somebody leaves, you're not permanently playing down a player. And one weakness of this, though, is it doesn't transfer over the population cap. And I think that might be possible in the editor now. So I might be able to do that in a version 3, so that if somebody does leave, you can actually transfer the 200 population cap to yourself, so you would have 400 population cap then. And so you're not actually limiting the number of barbarians and how many units they can make. So just something in the works, something I'm thinking about. And Romans here electing to go for a bit of a unit-heavy strategy. Normally, I start by walling up around the different town centers and trying to advance as quickly as possible and get at least a couple of castles down. Because really, you don't need to defend all 5, you just really need to defend 1 for sure. And usually I try to focus on at least 3 that I try to defend really well, and there's usually 1 or 2 I just kind of give up on. But this is a very aggressive unit approach by the Romans, maybe the most aggressive Western Empire I've seen before. And coming out and doing a pretty good raid on Gray here. And this could actually be dangerous, because he's in Castle Age. You get some decent upgrades here. Doesn't have them yet. But if he did, he could probably take out this town center. Although Gray can always rebuild back here. Try to give him lots of space to rebuild. Red as well is going for a very unit-heavy approach. Although Red's an interesting one. Like the Eastern Empire, they're usually not a big target. So they can do a little bit of raiding or send in units to reinforce blue. And that's sort of the intention. But you do find you have a much bigger economy and you kind of run out of things to do as the Roman Empire in the first 30 minutes or so. So sometimes you do just go out and raid and just try to slow down the other players as much as possible. And so for me, again, my main focus as Orange was to make ships, but had to make a few archers and tech and the crossbows because I saw a lot of infantry here and it seemed a little dangerous. You can even see the light cavalry making it quite far, just scouting out, seeing what we've got. And we have quite a few good players on our team, like Green already sending out knights and stuff like that. And again, doing some harassment and out-teching here. Teal, and so it's good, you know, if you've got the advantage, you might as well take it and try to harass, force us into making some units instead of just a free boom. And harassing even the fishing economy here. Like, this is quite a strong early play from the Romans. It's a tough thing to balance, but the goal is to have the Romans able to raid at first, but not able to actually defeat the Barbarians. Barbarians definitely on the back foot here, and actually stonewalling. Now, I've disabled stonewalling for the Romans. I didn't really think the Barbarians would even be doing that. Kind of a bit of a reversal here already in the first 20 minutes. Romans are out for blood at the moment. In the game, I was pretty curious to see how this would work out. I felt like this might turn into a barbarian survival story. Romans decided, that's it, we're not defending our borders, we're taking the fight to them. And even castle dropping yellow here, make Dacia Roman again. And this is a lot of aggression. Sometimes yellow does actually get taken out sometimes, but notice that our green and purple players who have had a free boom in the back are doing a good job trying to jump in and trying to deny this castle. We're saying we can't let it happen, but this is actually going to go up, helped out by these crossbows. So that's a little bit annoying, and it's actually a great location for it, up on a hill and in between two cliffs like that. I'm just going to switch the overlay so we can see where the military units are a bit better. And so we're coming around. We got some cavalry archers. They can be incredibly annoying for the Romans to deal with. We're putting down some siege workshops, so we really do want to focus down this castle, because, you know, we're only 23 minutes, 24 minutes into the game, but we really want them to be feeling the pressure, and not us. I mean, if this just gets stalemate out here, then we are eventually going to lose. Even Grey's kind of taken out here at this point. He's not even castle age yet. Not sure what his normal castle time is, but I mean, that's a lot of pressure to be under from long swordsmen 10 minutes into the game. And we're trying to put up our own castle here, but Western Romans seem to know what's up, and we're trying to push that. Going with a mix of a lot of different units, probably just trying to keep all their military buildings working, because they do start with quite a few buildings. It's not ideal, so they're going to deny this castle, at least for now, which again just sets us back. Like, we're on the clock, we got to feel the pressure. And we're on the timer, not them. And what is this? Going for the forward university. I like that. Assault them with knowledge. I find red is the most interesting to play because there's really a couple ways you could go very defensive, trying to help out blue, or like we see here, you can be a little bit more aggressive with it. And you sort of dictate how the game's going to go, more so than anybody else. And this castle in particular is really setting the tone. Now, in the background here, one thing that Blue's doing is he's trying to go for a transport ship landing, which is a great way to counteract the fact that the rivers create a lot of choke points and tend to stall the game. It's a nice way to break through and attack economies. And Yellow getting his first town center cleaned up here. Luckily, he's got a second, and I've sent in a bunch of crossbows, and we've got some rams. And so we're completely focused on this right now. We at least do have the rams, and I've got a couple of those, because we really need to turn the momentum around here. And meanwhile, Blue's now got his units. He's going to try to drop those off at some point. I don't have any navy here yet, since obviously I'm going pretty heavily on land at the moment. And we are going to take down this castle here, finally, with the rams. Lose all my crossbows, but really I was trying to give the rams a bit of a chance here. And so we are going to take that down, and we did manage to get this one up. But this is a pretty big push by Blue here, and meanwhile, he's out here raiding a bunch of my houses and everything, so I am queuing up a few knights here, I think, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so I got a couple knights, so that is going to clean those up, and I go for a defensive castle, but extreme aggression here by the Romans. At this point, Grey is going to put up a defensive castle, which I think is a great idea, and I'm going to start going into longboats and maybe a few other ships as well, but try to get my navy out. And we've got two castles now, which the Goth player normally does go with a couple castles to make some Huscarls here. Normally not with this much Roman harassment, though. And Siege Workshop. Yeah, they're not actually supposed to be able to build Siege Workshops. I think that's kind of a bug that just happened in the transfer, switching it over to Definitive Edition. I'd say things are feeling a little bit more balanced, though. There's been a bit of a momentum shift from when the Romans were sort of steamrolling us there. Red with his army here, we're pushing forward, trying to take out some of these buildings. And Blue's going to come and engage us. It's a little dicey with all these mangonels here. And I'm trying to get a few shots. We're trying to coordinate our unit types here a little bit as well. And Goth's making all the pikes, and then I can make the onagers here, or the mangonels. And Teutonic Knight's so strong. Obviously it's supposed to represent the Roman legions, which is not totally correct here at this time period. My understanding, at least, is the Roman army at this point was basically indistinguishable from the quote-unquote barbarian armies that they were fighting, and largely composed of mercenaries anyway. And Blue making a pretty good push here with the rams, but Huscarls are ready, and they're going to come out and clean these up pretty fast. So, hang on, what color do these look to you? I kept thinking these were my units because they look orange, but these are actually gray. Can't really tell the difference there. So, I'll tell you what, we've seen two castles from the Romans so far, and what's so unusual is that the castles have been there, and yet, if you look at their town centers, nothing around the town center. I mean, it is walled up, so not nothing. We have one defensive castle here, two defensive castles here. Okay, that's good. And if we look down here, nothing, completely open. Nothing, completely open. And this one, you start with a castle there, but this one's actually kind of hard to defend. So notice the extreme aggression. We're even throwing castles in the barbarian territory. And so you kind of give up the defensive advantage that you get by being able to reinforce things quickly. It used to be that I tried to actively discourage Romans from doing this sort of thing, and used to have a mechanic where they would lose health as soon as they crossed the river. But I thought it might be kind of confusing for any players that didn't know about that mechanic, so I've tried to balance it in other ways. And so I've got my decent navy here, and he's still trying to launch little raids, but they're starting to get cleaned up. You can see once we're boomed, we can actually handle them quite easily. And all the trolling. You're not supposed to be walling him in, man. You're supposed to be destroying his walls. And so anyway, so we're pushing up here, and at the same time, Purple goes for this amazing sneak attack. And like I said, it's completely undefended. There's no castle here. There's no walls. He realizes it when it's at about half health and gone. So that's one of the capitals done, and loads it back up. Carthago has fallen. That's 1 out of their 5. And same thing, hasn't even reacted by walling this up. And so that's going to be 2 capitals down immediately. And we're not even at 45 minutes yet. And meanwhile, we're pushing here. And this is their capital right there. Again, not walled up. So with the Romans, you gotta be careful. You gotta be really defensive, because even though it feels like you're winning and you're getting good raids, once the barbarians get rolling, you really need those defenses made. And you can see I'm attacking in the north as well. I was sidetracked a bit, making the crossbows, but now I'm basically full on water. Now, not all my boats are able to shoot it at the same time, but this is going to go down. So that's 1, 2 now. We're taking down 3 up there, and this is the 4th now under attack. And then what's going to be left is Rome here in a second. And meanwhile, we're also getting some attacks here successfully by Green. I think, yeah, Green's dropping them off with the transport ship. Again, transport ships for the win here, guys. And remember, if we can take this down, we extend the game by 15 minutes, but we've now got 4 of the 5 capitals. We just took that one down. And this is the only one we need left, is if we take down that wonder, we win. We just have to do it by 1 hour and 15, or 1 hour and 30 if we can take this down. So you can see this gets a little steamrolly, a little overwhelming for the Romans. And this game might even look like the Romans are underpowered and this is impossible to win, but it is very possible to do. Just in my experience, you have to play it a lot more defensively than it is here, because you can't really 1 versus 3 the barbarians out in the field. Though at the same time, I don't want to dictate how people have to play this scenario, and I like people trying different things. So we're going for the little sneaky raid here by Purple, and that is going to get cleaned up by the Teutonic Knights. It's still quite a strong unit. But yeah, managing to take this down, so we get an extra 15 minutes. And that's great, not that it looks like we need it at this point. Because it's just, yeah, it's pretty crazy. We're sort of everywhere and just swarming them. And the only question is, how long is it going to take to break down these stone gates, get past this castle? And the answer is we don't actually need to, because I'm sneaking around with my navy again, the one that took out Londinium. And I'm actually going to take it down with these right here, which you can see, there's just so many arrows. And it's going to go down pretty quick. Obviously not expecting an attack on water like this, so there's no navy or real defenses around Rome. And Teutonic Knights arriving a little bit too late. Rome falls. And thus we win at 53 minutes. That might be one of the fastest I've ever seen the Barbarians win. But Purple really rocked that. Like, he took out 2 town centers basically out of nowhere as we were fighting the other one. I think the Romans might have gotten a bit too confident or comfortable there. They might have been doing quite well at the beginning, and they were pressuring Yellow. I mean, they were shooting with the castle, like a castle in his face right here, right? Which, you know, when you see how unprotected some of these were, I think 2 of those forward castles probably would have helped out a lot back here and walling these up. It definitely needs to be played a bit differently than a random map game, though I'm sure if he had a chance to do it again, he would probably be more defensive. But let's take a look at all the stats and everything. So you can see they actually did a great job. I mean, you're fighting the whole game. It's maybe the first 20 minutes are a little slow, but after that, it's just non-stop attacks from everywhere, and you really feel that pressure that probably the Romans did feel as they were under invasion from so many different directions. And so there you go, there's that. I mean, you can see the Romans start so much stronger, right? And they even tried to take advantage of that and aggressively push us. And when you're up against 6 players, that's a tough way to do it. Sort of got to brace from the beginning and just assume you're going to be overrun at some point in the not too distant future. But anyway, I just want to show you guys that game, and so you have an idea of how it's played. And if you do want to play it, it is up, like I said, You can get it under the mods, and just look up Romans versus Barbarians. It should be there, and you can download that. Just make sure you have the teams all set up and the resources so that the game can actually get going. So I do want to play another game of this and upload it, and next time I'm going to be playing as the Western Roman Empire and show sort of the contrast. Like, I think we played the Barbarians very well this game, and showed the other side, sort of what I like to do as the Roman Empire. So keep an eye out for that if that's something you might be interested in. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.